8 minutes paper, light it bright. 8 minutes privacy, research, insight. 8 minutes paper, feel the spark. 8 minutes privacy, making it.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. For those of you tracking the world of AI, you've probably noticed AI agents popping up, well, everywhere. You've got chatbots helping with finances, virtual medical advisors. They're meant to make our lives easier, right? But there's this interesting question kind of bubbling up. How does talking to an AI instead of a person change what we're willing to actually tell them? We hear a lot about the privacy paradox, that weird thing where people say they care about privacy, but then, well, their actions online maybe don't always match up. But what if the AI itself, just its nature, subtly changes how much sensitive stuff we're willing to share?
That's exactly what a really fascinating new deep dive looks into. It's from the Journal of Service Research by Tae-Woo Kim and colleagues. And this research, it really unpacks these surprising factors that make us either open up or maybe clam up when we're faced with an AI.
Yeah, and what really caught my eye here is how, well, unexpected some of it is. So our mission today is to kind of unpack why you might actually be more willing to spill your secrets to an AI than a person sometimes. And then also look at these key situations where that trend just completely flips. It's all about trying to understand what's really going on under the hood in these digital chats. Okay, so let's set the scene a bit. AI is becoming super common in, direct consumer interactions. Something like 80% of firms are using chatbots now. And in areas like finance and medicine, they're projecting most chatbot interactions will soon happen without any human involved at all, which, of course, means companies are getting their hands on more and more sensitive data about us.
Right. And this creates a really interesting question for you personally.
Yeah.
If everything else is the same, would you tell more private stuff to a human or an AI? I mean, on one hand, AI can process huge amounts of data, store it forever. That might make you hesitate, right? But on the other hand, we often see AI as, well, lacking those social emotional skills. And this leads to a core idea in the study. Our everyday beliefs about AI specifically, this idea that they lack social judgment, that can actually lead to more disclosure of sensitive information to AI compared to humans.
Huh. So how does that actually work then?
Well, the theory goes like this. Because we tend to perceive AI as not really having a mind or emotions, or the ability to truly get human behavior, we worry less about being judged negatively by the AI.
Which is totally different from talking to another person.
Exactly. With humans, we have this fundamental, almost unconscious drive to look good, to maintain a positive self-image.
Okay, so how did they test that idea?
So first, they did a pilot study, just to sort of map out how people see AI versus computers versus humans. And they found humans were seen as pretty distinct from both AI and computers on things like experience, can it feel things?
Yeah.
Agency, can it act on its own? And human nature traits like friendliness. But interestingly, AI scored higher than standard computers on agency and even on some human nature traits and uniquely human traits like being organized or polite. So it confirmed people do have this specific, unique set of beliefs about AI. It's not just seen as a faster computer.
Right. And this is where it gets really interesting. Study one. They took this theory and applied it directly.
They did, put it right into a medical context. They asked participants how willing they'd be to disclose info about a urinary tract infection, UTI, to either a human doctor or an AI doctor. Some questions were pretty standard, like demographics, not sensitive. But others were definitely sensitive, potentially embarrassing, things like recent sexual activities.
Okay, and the results?
Pretty clear cut. For those sensitive questions, people were significantly more willing to share personal information with the AI doctor compared to the human one.
Wow.
Yeah. But for the non-sensitive info, there wasn't much difference. Actually, a slight reversal. People shared a tiny bit more with the human. And this boost in sharing sensitive stuff with AI, it was directly tied to people worrying less about being judged by the AI. You basically figured the AI couldn't really judge you, not in a meaningful social way.
That's fascinating. So it's like we feel safer being vulnerable with something we think can't, gossip about us or even just disapprove silently. And what's really interesting, too, you mentioned they looked at privacy concerns.
They did. And surprisingly, privacy worries didn't explain this difference in sharing.
Huh.
It really boiled down to that fear of social judgment, that basic human thing.
Okay, so if AI is the go-to for, let's say, sensitive, maybe embarrassing confessions, what about when you're just looking for a bit of support, a shoulder to cry on, so to speak? Does AI still win out then?
Well, not necessarily. The research found that, why we share information can be driven by different things beyond just avoiding judgment. For instance, sharing emotional experiences because you want social support. Maybe you're feeling sad or depressed. That's different from sharing something that might make you feel shame or guilt. And in those support-seeking cases, the AI's perceived lack of emotional capability, like empathy, could actually make you less likely to share.
That makes total sense. If I'm looking for someone to understand how I feel, a machine might not seem like the best bet. So study 2 looked at this.
Exactly. They had participants disclose actual past behaviors, some related to guilt, others related to sadness. And they found people shared the guilt-related experiences more with the AI than the human. That matches the first study, right? The judgment thing.
Right, avoiding shame.
But for the sadness-related experiences, there was no significant difference in sharing between the AI and the human agent. So it suggests that for emotions where the risk isn't so much social judgment, but where you might be looking for support, that AI advantage kind of disappears.
Okay, interesting. And then study 3 went even deeper with Replica.
Yeah, Replica, that's an AI known for trying to be emotionally intelligent, right?
Yeah.
They found that when people perceived the AI agent as having more empathy, their willingness to share emotional experiences for support like sadness or depression actually went up.
Okay, so making the AI seem more empathetic helps when we need support.
Right. But here's the twist. That same perceived empathy in the AI actually decreased disclosure when the reason for sharing was to avoid social judgment like embarrassment or shame.
Whoa, wait. So making the AI seem more human and empathetic made people less likely to share embarrassing stuff.
Kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? It raises this big question for anyone designing these systems. Does making AI more human-like always help? And the answer seems to be, well, it's complicated. It depends why you're sharing.
And this is where things take another really interesting turn, because that very thing, the AI's perceived lack of social judgment that can flip from being an advantage to a real problem. Like, think about the broken leg problem in AI. An algorithm might be great at predicting movie habits, but it has no clue if you suddenly can't go because, you broke your leg. Context matters. Or remember Microsoft's chatbot, Tay? It had to be shut down super fast because it started tweeting awful, racist things.
Yeah.
It completely failed to understand what's socially okay.
Exactly. That's precisely the issue, contextual understanding, judging social appropriateness.
Yeah.
So the research predicted, okay, maybe this enhanced disclosure to AI flips, it reverses, in situations where the AI's lack of social understanding could actually put you in a socially awkward or vulnerable spot.
Okay, so how'd they test that? Study 4, I assume.
Yep, study 4. They used this hypothetical photo curation service. Imagine you're letting some agent pick, say, 1,000 pictures from your phone to be shared publicly on social media.
Oh, wow. Okay, high stakes.
Definitely. Some photos might be private, embarrassing, things you absolutely wouldn't want public. The question was, how likely would you be to actually use this service if the curator was a human stranger, a human friend, or an AI?
And let me guess. The AI didn't fare so well here?
You got it. A clear reversal. People were less likely to use the service and basically hand over their photos to the AI curator compared to either the human stranger or especially the human friend. And what drove that reluctance? It was the concern that the AI just wouldn't get it. It wouldn't be able to understand context and filter out the socially inappropriate pictures. The fear was it could lead to major social embarrassment. So fascinatingly, the AI's perceived inability to judge socially, which was an asset before.
Becomes a huge drawback when that judgment is actually needed to protect you.
Precisely.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what's the big takeaway for you listening right now?
I think the biggest thing is realizing that your willingness to share secrets with an AI isn't just random. It's not a simple yes or no. It seems we're doing this kind of strategic calculation, often unconsciously, based on the situation. Are we worried about being judged? Do we need empathy? Or are we worried the AI might mess up socially? Your self-disclosure really varies systematically depending on the context and what you need or expect from that interaction.
Which has some really practical implications, right? If you're a company designing an AI for customer service, for example.
Absolutely. If your goal is to get people to share sensitive info, maybe it's for medical advice, financial planning, maybe even like a confession type service, then this research suggests you might actually want to downplay the AI's human-like judgment features, things like visual recognition or making it seem too aware socially.
So less judgment capability perceived means more disclosure.
Potentially, yeah, for that sensitive, potentially embarrassing stuff. But conversely, if the service is about emotional support, like maybe helping someone through a really frustrating customer service issue, or maybe a mental health interaction.
Then you want the opposite.
Exactly. Then making the AI seem more human-like, emphasizing its ability to perceive or express empathy. that could actually increase sharing and be beneficial for the user's experience.
And that finding about anthropomorphism making AI seem human is really surprising, isn't it? Because a lot of research usually suggests making AI more human increases trust.
Right, it often does. But this study shows a nuance. More human-like can increase trust and disclosure in a supportive context, but it can actually decrease willingness to share sensitive stuff if that human likeness makes you worry more about being judged, maybe in a more transactional or even adversarial context. It really depends on the AI's role.
That makes sense. It's about the type of human trait being signaled.
And there's one more piece here to think about. AI has this incredible memory, right? It can store our private information essentially forever. Now, that could lead to better, more personalized service down the line. That's the upside. But it could also potentially reduce disclosure if people start worrying about the future social risks of having that sensitive data stored permanently. What could happen with it later?
Right, that permanence cuts both ways. That's definitely something to keep in mind, and probably for future research to dig into more.
For sure.
So the next time you find yourself chatting with an AI, could be a customer service bot, a virtual assistant, anything really, maybe just pause for a second. Remember this. How much you feel comfortable sharing might be subtly shaped by whether you think it's judging you, whether you think it understands your feelings, or maybe whether you worry it might accidentally broadcast your most embarrassing photos.
It really just underscores how complex these human AI interactions are getting and how our, really deep-seated social instincts are playing out even when we're interacting with machines.
Well, we hope this deep dive gave you some aha moments today and maybe a bit of a shortcut to feeling well-informed on this really fascinating topic. Thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in the social impact of artificial intelligence, please do click the bell to follow and save. Or, hey, leave us a message telling us what you want to hear about next time. We'll see you then.